ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to a brand new edition of Daily Do Dynasty. I'm Craig Orbanoff, and look who's back in the little box below us here. We got Mark Taylor at EM Taylor 29 back on. I guess I'll say the airwaves, but this is a digital medium. So there's no FM or AM frequency happening here. Either way, we have a lot of fun talking fantasy football each and every week. It is fantasy football playoff time. And this is going to be a fun show because last week, as we discussed, Rich and Marcus played in one of their shared leagues. This week, Rich and I are playing in a shared league. And Marcus is playing John, who you may or may not remember. I promise he's alive. We haven't seen him. In a while, but I promise he's around. I heard from him today. They're playing as well in a shared league. So we're going to go through these fantasy football matchups. We're going to discuss why we're starting certain players, how we're feeling about those matchups, and just kind of discuss the games overall. For anyone listening, this show is being recorded Thursday at 8:20. So anything in regards to the Chargers-Raiders games in these fantasy matchups, we're going to kind of be talking about as the game is happening. And, we might be wrong. We might look stupid. I don't know. The game's going to be going by the time we are done. And this is one of those weird weeks where there's Saturday football. This is like the pre-Christmas Saturday football. I don't know why the NFL does this. It happens every year where there's two games on a Saturday in the regular season. And it actually drives me crazy this time of year because I have to remember to set my lineup like just that extra day in advance, which is it just gets me out of that rhythm. So if anything, Rich, my superstition believes that you will win this week because I'm just out of my rhythm. But on the actuals, I think I might beat the dog poop out of you. Let's talk fantasy football, though. And Marcus, we're going to kick things off with your matchup here. And let's what we've been doing the last couple of weeks is we've just been taking it kind of position group by position group, talking about both players, talking about both games, and just kind of, do you think you're going to win that matchup? And Marcus, you're starting off hot and heavy here. You have the best quarterback in the game, Patrick Mahomes, facing off against the New Orleans Saints, and you are facing Deshaun Watson, who is squaring up against the Indianapolis Colts. Both are some pretty good defenses. That's a tough matchup for both quarterbacks. But why don't you start by breaking down your quarterback, Patty Mahomes, and kind of the Chiefs-Saints game as a whole?
I mean, Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. I mean, you don't really have to say much. I mean, last week he threw a couple picks, and then he just started throwing touchdowns. I mean, it's what they do in Kansas City. It's like no matter what happens, you can pencil them in for at least 2 touchdowns a game, minimum. Like that's like a bad game for him at this point. So I definitely think he's going to put up points. I'm not even remotely worried about Patrick Mahomes putting up any points for me.
I also like his mobility. I think it's an underrated part of his game. He's probably going to pick up anywhere from 30 to 40 yards on the ground, and that all adds up, especially in fantasy football. But you're facing another mobile, dangerous quarterback in Deshaun Watson. Rich, we've talked about how talented the Colts are defensively. What do you think that NFL fans, Texans fans, the Houston Texans can expect out of their quarterback this week?
A loss is what I'm going to start with. I mean, I really think that the Colts are definitely the better team on both sides of the ball right now. Deshaun Watson, it's an uphill battle. His wide receivers are nowhere to be found. He's got a Kiki Kusi, who we'll talk about later because Marcus has him, and then Chad Hansen, who did not make the JETS. So that's who he's throwing to right now. The running backs are hurt too. I think the Colts are just going to contain Deshaun. Plus, he got hurt last game. I mean, he got hurt. He was down. He was out a few plays. So I think definitely, Marcus, you win this by leaps and bounds. I think he's probably going to double Deshaun Watson at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, the projection differential is about 10 points, but I just feel so bad for Deshaun Watson. He has so much talent, and just that team around him is not set up to succeed. They can't protect him. He's scrambling like a madman. He has no one to throw it to. It's just an ugly situation for Deshaun in Houston. I agree with you 100%. I think Patrick Mahomes wins that matchup. In the Chiefs Saints game, what's your prediction just in terms of who's going to come up on top, Rich?
I mean, it's really going to come down to if Drew Brees plays. I mean, he's back at practice. It seems like he's going to be the starter. He's going to come back fresh, hopefully. I think if Taysom Hill plays this game, there's no chance that the Saints are going to win. I think if Drew Brees plays, there's at least, a 40% chance that they win. But I think the Chiefs are the better team. I think this should be the Super Bowl. I say it every year. This would be great to have as the Super Bowl, prequel. But I think the Chiefs will win. But Drew Brees will make it closer.
Yeah, I'm with you on that as well. And Marcus, as we kind of slide down your matchup here, it's the battle of two Saints running backs at the RB1 position. It's Alvin Kamara on your team going against Latavius Murray. You obviously have the primary running back. I think it's pretty obvious that Kamara is going to score more points than Murray. So let's just kind of talk about this game overall. Are you in the same camp as Rich? Do you think the Chiefs pull out a victory?
Yeah, same with Rich. If Drew Brees plays, they have a better chance. The issue is just I don't think Taysom Hill can quarterback the offense well enough to throw enough touchdowns and keep pace with Patrick Mahomes because he's going to come out slinging it to those speedster receivers. Drew Brees, he has more of a command. I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer. He can stay in the pocket and throw 3 to 5 touchdowns when healthy. I just don't think Taysom Hill can keep pace.
Yeah, I have to agree with that as well. And I think, the talent levels between Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray are night and day. It's a pretty obvious clear-cut victory for you. Let's talk about the running back 2 position, and then we'll just kind of lump the running backs all in all. John's rocking James Conner. I think he's been a fan of Conner for a long time now. A disappointing season for Conner in fantasy and statistics. The Steelers are having a fairly good season. He's also listed as questionable, but a very good matchup against Cincinnati. If he's able to go, he's more than likely going to kind of right the ship and have a pretty good game. But you have David Montgomery going, Marcus, for the Chicago Bears. Bears, Vikings, you are a Vikings fan, so I'll let you kind of break down this matchup.
I mean, part of me hopes he doesn't have a good game, but I think he will. He had a good game last week. I think he's going to come in trying to stay hot against Minnesota. I can see him. He's going to get his touches. He's going to get his carries. As far as Connor, I mean, I don't know. Big Ben. I mean, he's been slinging it. You got Juju, you got Claypool, you got Deontay. I want to say that's how right, Deontay Johnson. I mean, he got his weapons. I think the Steelers are going to come out playing hard. They play Cincinnati, so I think Big Ben is just going to air it out. So that may limit James Conner's ability to get his touches, get his yards. But Montgomery, I think he should play pretty well, unfortunately. I think he'll give me some good points, hopefully in a loss.
Well, and, if Minnesota can get up, by a couple of scores at one point, that might neutralize your boy Montgomery a little bit after maybe he scored a touchdown or so for you.
Give me my points and then
game,
disappear.
Right? It's an interesting game, fantasy football.
Fantasy makes you a monster.
And Rich, the Steelers Bengals game. Steelers obviously started off the season really hot. Haven't quite looked as good over the last couple of weeks. What's your analysis here?
I mean, I'm going to say what Marcus always says. This is the chicken noodle soup game. I mean, this is going to make you feel a little better for pretty much everyone on the Steelers side of the ball. But as far as the running backs go, I mean, they have 3 running backs who are just meh. I mean, you have Benny Snell, you have Jalen Samuels, and you have James Conner, who none of them are that great. So I'm not concerned about that. I think, honestly, you're going to pick up 15 points between Mahomes and Kamara, where, Montgomery doesn't have to have a great game. I think you're 3 for 3 so far on your side of the ball. I think the Steelers are absolutely going to win by a big margin, but I think it's going to be mostly through the air.
Yeah, I agree with that, and specifically with this matchup. Yeah, we're 3 matchups in a row where I feel like you probably have at least 20 points in terms of differential, maybe even more. You're projected to win by 30. So we'll see how much more you pick up in the projections as we go down the pipe here, Marcus. Let's talk about the wide receiver matchup. And this is where I think John could rally back and maybe make up for some differential. The projection doesn't agree, but I think Juju Smith-Schuster against the Bengals could have a very, very big game. I understand there's a lot of mouths to feed in Pittsburgh, but Juju is one of them, and who knows, maybe it's his turn to get hot. It's one of those things you kind of have to wait and see. Your wide receiver one is Adam Thielen, who is a daily to dynasty favorite over the last couple of years. Obviously, we let you talk about the Vikings-Chicago Bears game as a whole, but Rich, why don't you kind of talk about that game in itself and Adam Thielen as well?
I mean, I just want to point out that didn't John trade you Adam Thielen?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, he gave me Thielen.
So I mean, I love the redemption curve here. He's gonna kick John's butt here. I'm not a huge Juju fan. I mean, the way that he is on the Steelers right now, I legit think he's a number 2 behind Deontay. Deontay does drop the ball a lot, and he got benched the first half of the game last week. I think he's going to come out and he's going to be pretty explosive this week. I think Thielen definitely is the better wide receiver out of the two. I think that Chicago's defense is not what it used to be. I think the Vikings win this game. I think the 17 points for Thielen, I think that's fair. I don't think Juju's going to get 14 though. I'll put it that way. So 4-4 for you for sure.
And let's stay in the Minnesota Viking and Chicago Bear game, because John's rocking the wide receiver who complements Adam Thielen, and that's Justin Jefferson. Rich, a favorite of yours, a player that you have on your team as well. This is the first time I'm really thinking that we're going cross games here. So you also have Justin Jefferson. Marcus is rocking Jarvis Landry, who is facing the better than advertised New York Giants pass defense. The pretty good New York Giants pass defense, as we've come to discover over the last couple of weeks. So Rich, let's stay with you. You can talk about Justin Jefferson and then the matchup across the line with Jarvis Landry.
I love Justin Jefferson. I mean, he's better than, I'm not going to say every wide receiver that was drafted this year, because I think CeeDee Lamb and him will battle until they retire, but it's going to come down to those two guys. I mean, they got a diamond in the rough. The Vikings have the best 1-2 combo, I think, in the NFL. It's like Diggs never left. You got young Diggs there. And then Landry, I mean, he's been good the last 2 weeks. Well, I can't even say last week. He had a dud against the Ravens. But before that, he was serviceable as the number 1 wide receiver. He's just so hit or miss. I have him on my team, and I draft him when I need a 5th wide receiver. I think, Marcus, you did the same thing. So, I think Jefferson's going to blow Landry out of the water, which will make you happy in real life, not so much in this matchup. So
yeah.
I think this is the first matchup that you lose, but I do think the Browns and Landry beat the Giants by a wide margin.
Yeah, I have to say that I agree. The thing, Landry, they sometimes get a little cute and do something gadgety with him. So I don't know. He had a down week last week. He could have a bit of an up week. I think Justin Jefferson wins this matchup across the way. But, you've won the last 5, so don't be greedy, Marcus. It's fine. And Browns, New York Giants as a whole. Marcus, what do you think about that matchup?
I think, like you said, the Giants defense is actually a lot better than people give it credit for. It's better than most people say, according to Rich, his favorite thing. But hopefully Landry can, like you said, get some gadget plays, throw a touchdown or something. I think Cleveland wins this game. I think they're eager to get back on the field after losing that amazing game to the Ravens. And I think Baker comes out. I don't know if he has an amazing game, but I do think Cleveland can win this game.
I think Cleveland needs to step it up defensively if they want to win this game. I understand they faced Lamar Jackson and the Ravens last week, but it was a Lamar Jackson who isn't the same Lamar Jackson we saw last week, and a Lamar Jackson who was prairie dogging for 3.5 quarters. And they gave up 45 points to a pretty one-dimensional offense at this point. I'm not saying that the Giants offensively are in the same league as Baltimore, but if Cleveland wants to be a contender this season, that's where they're going to have to step it up because that wasn't a great offense that they faced last week, and they gave up over 40 points. If you can score over 40 in the NFL, you should be able to win. If not, there's a problem there. So that's my 2 cents on the Cleveland Browns. I think they will beat the New York Giants, though, in primetime Sunday Night Football. Speaking of the Baltimore Ravens and the prairie dogging Lamar Jackson, let's talk about your tight end here. You got Mark Andrews facing off against TJ Hawkinson. I think both are pretty good tight ends. Both have really good matchups. So I think it's a little bit of a coin flip as to who actually wins this one matchup-wise. But why don't we talk about Ravens Jags, and Marcus, let's start with you. What do you like about that matchup?
As far as the matchup between the tight ends, I think whoever gets the touchdown comes out on top. I think they'll be both touchdown dependent. Andrews seems to be the number one option because Hollywood Brown drops everything. And Hawkinson had 11 targets, I think, against the Packers, but he only had 43 yards. So they're just touchdown dependent. Baltimore, I think they keep the good times rolling and come out. I think they beat the Jags. I don't think Jacksonville really has anything for Baltimore. I think Lamar has a good game. And hopefully Andrews gives me a couple touchdowns or at least 100 yards or something. Hopefully he gives you some points. But I think Baltimore wins this matchup.
No, Rich, do you think the quarterback change in Jacksonville affects their ability to win this game against Baltimore, or do you think that this game is pretty one-sided?
I think this game's already over. But, the Jacksonville Jaguars will have a chance against the Bears, which is good. But, and I think Marcus really got lucky this week with Matt Stafford probably not playing. I don't really see Hawkinson surpassing Andrews in this game. If Stafford was in, obviously I think it's definitely closer. But I think Mark wins by, let's say, 5 points, which last week I think it would be the other way around. So.
Yeah, the Matt Stafford factor is certainly a big one. I think Tennessee should pretty decisively be able to beat Detroit, especially without Stafford. But even with, I think Tennessee is just a much better football team than the Detroit Lions. Let's talk about this flex position. John went with a tight end in the flex position with Dallas Goedert. I don't know. I never learned the right way. I would say Goedert. That sounds fancy. Like if I were him, I would go with that pronunciation.
It's like Target and Tarjay.
Yeah, it's just one just makes you feel a little bit better about the trip, But okay, Goddard. It's like Gogurt. Facing off against the currently playing this second Austin Eckler. As of this moment, has 4 carries for 8 yards and 1 reception for 8 yards, 2.6 fantasy points in mine and Rich's matchup, because Rich, you also have Austin Eckler going. Eckler is a very good back. He has a good matchup here against the Raiders. He did not play in this game last time around, but has put together a pretty good stretch of games over the last 3 weeks in the double digits. It seems likely that he'll get into the double digits again. The question is how much, and how much better than Dallas Goedert will that be? So you're both obviously a little biased. I don't have Austin Eckler going. I think Austin Eckler is probably going to end up in the 15-point range by the end of the night. Dallas is projected 9 points in your fantasy league. Arizona is a little bit weak against the tight end position. I think there's a world in which he could get into the end zone. The new quarterback in Philly is a bit of a wild card. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get. He had a good game last week. I think that should be a fairly high-scoring game in Philly. I just don't know how many of those points Dallas is going to get. So I will give the edge to Austin Eckler. Rich, what about you?
I mean, this one's not close. I really hate – we talked about it before the show. I hate putting a tight end in my flex position unless his name is Kelsey, Kittle, or Andrews, or Waller. Besides those guys, there's not anyone that's going to sniff my flex position there. I don't think this one's close just because I think Hurts is – he's run-first type guy. He's going to look at the outside for his receivers. Goddard definitely did jump Ertz because Ertz is already out the door. There's no way he's going to be an Eagle next year.
If
And
he's
then
a Jet, I'm gonna cry.
it's probably going to happen, honestly. With Joe Douglas, it just makes too much sense.
Ugh.
And then Austin Eckler, I think, he could be one of the highest scoring players on your team this week. They've only had the ball, I think, once or twice. 15, I think, is fair. I think a little more for him because I think the Chargers might go up and just keep the pedal to the metal. And that's me being biased, by the way.
And as we're watching this game, the Raiders are second and goal at about the 2-yard line.
I know. I see it behind me. I'm just being a smart aleck there. I think that the Cardinals will beat the Eagles, and I think that the Chargers will beat the Raiders. That's just my analysis there. But Eckler wins that matchup by a long shot.
I like it. Let's talk about the secondary flex position here. Marcus is rocking Kiki Cutie. Cootie. I don't know. We'll find out eventually. Maybe it's like Cowdy or like something like we don't even like expect, like there's like a fourth pronunciation that couldn't possibly be right.
Some extra fancy. Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta say it with an accent, roll your R's or something.
Exactly. And you're squaring up against Michael Thomas, listed as questionable against the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm assuming Michael Thomas can play. He's gonna blow Kiki Cootie out of the water. And we've already discussed these games. So just matchup wise, Marcus, why don't you talk about Thomas versus Cutie?
I mean, yeah, Michael Thomas was held out of practice today, ankle injury. But good chance he'll play. Won't be at 100%, but he's Michael Thomas, so it doesn't really matter. He's going to beat Cutie because if Deshaun doesn't play, Cutie's value drops. Even if Deshaun does play, it's not like his value is sky high anyway. So Michael Thomas will win this matchup if he plays.
I agree with that. And as Marcus, you're giving your analysis, Derek Carr just like hurt his groin or something on a rollout to the right. And he had Jason Witten in the end zone. And yeah, he hurt something and he had to get himself out of bounds. So they're doing a field goal try. Certainly interesting for the rest of that game. I might have jinxed them when I just said that they were second and goal. Additionally, and he's going right to the locker room. Additionally, when he hiked over to the side to kind of catch his breath or whatever, there was a coffee cup just chilling on the sideline there. And I immediately went to that Game of Thrones episode where they goofed up at the end. And there was the Starbucks cup. It just looks so out of place. I was like, whose coffee is this? Some photographer.
It's the emergency cup for Lamar Jackson. Since he's got to poop, I think everyone's got to poop at least once.
Or the coffee helps get the poop out,
Yeah.
It's a natural laxative. The kicker matchup is always hard to really get a good read on this. The projections are about even. You have Myers from Seattle facing off against the football team, and John has Sanders from Miami going against New England. I think both kickers could have good games. I think they're on the better team in each respective matchup. I think they'll get a couple of extra points and probably a field goal or two. So that one's a little bit of a draw to me. Any additional kicker analysis from you guys?
Nah. I mean, I think New England's going to beat Miami. It's just going to be one of those fluke games where Miami is the better team right now, but Bill Belichick is I want another one, so they're going to win. Just because of that.
And especially with the rookie quarterback on the other side, right? There's some of that afoot. This next projection doesn't make a lick of sense to me in your game, Marcus, and that's your projection is fine. The Vikings defense projected 15.4 points against Chicago. It's the other one that I don't get. The Saturday night game, the Carolina Panthers defense are projected about 13 points against Green Bay's offense, which is the best offense in football right now. I think Carolina's defense gets -3 points.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is MVP candidate. Him and Mahomes are the top two candidates, and Devontae is looking like the best receiver in football right now. And Marquez Valdez-Scantling is catching touchdowns. Tunyon is catching touchdowns. Rodgers is just slinging it. I don't think their defense is going to play very well against Green Bay.
So that's another one where I think you're going to pick up about 15 points because I think Carolina probably has 0 on defense. And I could see Minnesota getting a couple of sacks on Chicago. I could see Minnesota getting a pick. They'll give up a couple of points, but I could see them doing enough where they score some and you make up on the differential. So that is your fantasy matchup. Are you planning to make any major changes? Are you scouring the waiver wire still? Like what's going through your head here?
The only change I considered was putting in Cleveland's defense instead of Minnesota's. Cleveland plays the Giants. I don't know if the Giants are going to put up a ton of points. If Daniel Jones doesn't play, I'm even more confident in starting Cleveland's defense. But I don't think Minnesota will do bad just considering I'm going against the Panthers defense. And like you just said, I don't think they're going to put up points. So I think I'll win that matchup, but I really want to win it. I don't want to win by like 3. I want to win that defensive matchup by like 30.
Well, I think you could, just given how awful Carolina is going to perform against Green Bay defensively. So that is your matchup. I think with our analysis here, we have you winning by about 30 to 40 points based on your matchups. So signed, sealed, and delivered. Marcus might be advancing to the next round of the playoffs. Anything can happen in fantasy football, though. Now, Rich, let the trash talking begin because you and I have a showdown. We thought this could happen last week, and then I lost my last game of the regular season, which put me in second place in this league as opposed to first. So now we get to play this week because of the seeding. And we just talked about how god-awful the Panthers defense is going to do against the Green Bay offense. But I got to tell you, the quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, has been a pretty nice piece for fantasy football this season. He's not a premier quarterback, but considering my main guy was Joe Burrow, and this is like the backup play, Teddy Bridgewater has been giving me everything I need. You have Tom Brady going against hot Atlanta. Brady has been pretty good this season, a little bit inconsistent. He's had a dud here or there. But I think as a whole, right, is a good quarterback, and he's facing a weak defense. Has yet to face Atlanta. They're facing Atlanta twice in the last 3 weeks of the season, which is a little bit interesting. I think you will win this matchup, but I think it's going to be closer than people will realize.
Yeah, I mean, Brady against Atlanta. I think he's gonna get a little healthy against that defense. My alternative is Deshaun Watson, and we already talked about that. I can't do that. He's hurt, and he's throwing to my neighbor down the street. That's who's on his team right now. So, Bridgewater is good too. You got Robbie Anderson, you got DJ Moore. You can dump it off to my man Mike Davis, who's on my team. So I'll vulture some of those points. But it is going to be close. But I think this is the type of game where Brady's going to have like 3 touchdowns. Because Matt Ryan on the other side is going to sling the ball a lot. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't love the Buccaneers' defense, so I think this is going to be like 2 teams that are going to be in the 30s, some sort of game like that.
I agree with that. I think Brady's going to get a couple touchdowns. I think the X factor, though, for Teddy is he has 4 rushing touchdowns this year, I feel like he could get another one against Green Bay. I like that as a little bit of an X factor. He's not afraid to run the football. And the Green Bay Carolina game and the Atlanta Tampa Bay game, just football game wise, Marcus, who do you like to come out on top in those?
For the Panthers game, I like the Packers, and I think Atlanta's going to lose. I think their defense isn't very good, and even if they were winning, they'll find a way to lose in the last 3 minutes. So I think Tampa Bay will beat Atlanta, and I think Green Bay will beat the Panthers.
I agree with that 100%. Let's talk running backs. We already discussed Austin Eckler currently playing, still at 2.5 points. I think the Chargers just got the football back though and are moving it, so could see something happen there. I have Derrick Henry. He was one of my top picks. He was limited in practice on Thursday. Hoping that everything's fine, but Derrick Henry is just a monster and a half in fantasy. He had 36 points against Jacksonville last week. It's another great matchup against Detroit, and I think without Stafford, Tennessee has the benefit of going up early and just running the football a lot, which just leads into Derrick Henry having another pretty monstrous game. He's had 2 monstrous games in a row before. I don't know if it's going to be the near 40 points we got last week or the 40 points against Indianapolis, but he's pretty good at running the football, my man Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he plays like he played against the Browns. That would be great. Only getting 4.9, that would be the dream there. They're going to go up quick, and then they're going to just run it with McNichols for 3 quarters. Let him rest. He had an off day today. Let him rest. But no, honestly, he's going to put up at least 20 points. This is the type of game where it's just going to be a blowout, and I don't see anything less than 20 points from him. And Tennessee is going to just run away with this. So yeah, you got me. Even if Eckler puts up 19, I mean, Henry's going to put up 20. So you got me on this one. I think I got you on the Brady Bridgewater, though.
I agree with that. And I'm actually going to have to make a change here for my second running back position. I currently have Antonio Gibson in. I was a little hopeful he might recover from the turf toe. He's out of practice today, and it's not looking likely. So it's looking like Leonard Fournette might end up sneaking his way into my lineups again, who's been just a real thorn in my side all season long. Leonard Fournette. But Rojo has been ruled out. Fournette sat out last week, so it might be a little fresh. I don't know. He might get one of those touchdowns on the throwing arm of Tom Brady, maybe. The couple of times I've needed Fournette, he's gotten me about 10, 11 points, and that's really all I would need to feel happy from Leonard Fournette. Facing Mike Davis, Davis has been having a tremendous season, especially kind of just in this relief area that wasn't really expected from him. He had a monster game last week against Denver, 26 points coming off of the bye. The thing here matchup-wise is how early does Aaron Rodgers get the show going? How quickly do the Panthers have to start slinging the ball, right? I think that's the question mark that you got to be asking yourself, right, Rich?
I mean, yes and no. I think that Bridgewater, he's a mobile quarterback, so I think the running back is always involved no matter how much they're down. But I like Mike Davis in this situation, not only because he's putting up points, but he's going to vulture some of Bridgewater's points. But you putting Fournette in does the same damn thing on my side, so they kind of can't figure it out.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I think Davis has a couple more points than Fournette at the end of the day, but I mean, I think the vulturing is going to do a lot of help on your side of things. So.
I agree. I think we're actually fairly evenly matched through the first 3 positions. It really depends on Derrick Henry. I feel like I might net a couple of points if Derrick Henry could have one of those monster games. But I feel like we're pretty even through 3. And I'm just seeing if there's any picks that we missed in any of these games. I don't think so. So let's talk about a game I don't think we gave a pick for before. We already discussed Justin Jefferson. He's facing off against my DK Metcalf, and yes, he's mine. I claim ownership over DK Metcalf. I feel like I've been touting his praises for way too long. He's one of my favorites in the NFL. Had 18 points last week against the Jets. I thought it would be more, but he's been in double digits 4 weeks in a row. He faces off against the Washington football team. He's projected 17 points. I think he has another pretty awesome game. He finds ways to get into the end zone. He's a big play type of guy. He gets targeted. I think this is probably fairly even between him and Justin Jefferson points wise at the end of the day. I love me DK Metcalf. Marcus, from a game perspective, Seattle versus Washington, what's your analysis of it?
Well, one, I'll add something to the last game for the Green Bay. I'll say that Green Bay has allowed every running back to get at least 100 yards except for one. So that goes pretty well for Mike Davis. I think he might add to that list. From the Seattle-Washington game, I think Seattle wins the game. I think DK does have a good game because Tyler Lockett is kind of in a slump. I know because I have him in another league. And DK is clear-cut number one on that team, number one receiver. So I think DK can have a good matchup, have a good game for you. And I think that Seattle wins this matchup.
And Rich, matchup-wise, Seattle-Washington, do you concur?
Yeah, no, it's going to be a blowout. Which, I mean, that might be the problem because that's what the problem was last week. Russell Wilson didn't play the fourth quarter, so why would DK Metcalf?
Geno Smith.
Exactly. I don't think it's going to be, the shellacking like what happened with the 40-3 win against the Jets, but I think it's going to be a blowout again. So we'll have to see.
I think Washington's a little more competitive than you've been giving them credit for. I think
defensive line, yes. Secondary.
I think Russell Wilson will have to finish the game. I'll put it like that. He might have to play all 4 quarters, maybe. Who knows how much throwing he'll have to do, though. Let's head on down to. I don't know why he's technically my wide receiver 2. He's the wide receiver 1 in all of our hearts. Davante Adams is just
a beast.
What a beautiful, beautiful monster he's developed into. I remember a few years ago just not getting the hype for Davante Adams. I don't remember how many years ago, but I remember watching a game and being like, why do I care about Davante Adams? They got Jordy Nelson. They got whoever the other guy was, Randall Cobb. I was like, why do they keep talking about Davante Adams? And if I could have told myself then that Davante Adams would be scoring this many fantasy points every week, I think I would pinch myself. He's projected 24 points, which seems insane, but honestly is probably going to happen. And we've discussed this game, but not this player. Rich, you have Allen Robinson going from the Chicago Bears. Huge game last week, 27 points. He put up 27 points last against Green Bay as well. 13 points against Detroit in between. Can he keep this trend up against Minnesota? Because he's going to need that kind of game to outscore Davante Adams.
I mean, I really think he can. I mean, I said it last week. Trubisky throws to Allen Robinson every other pass. That is a legit stat because I looked at it last week. Every other pass goes to Allen Robinson, and most of them are touchdowns. I think Allen Robinson, is keeping Mitch Trubisky on the field, and he knows it because he's making him look good, and everyone else can't catch the ball. It's literally the Allen Robinson Cole Kmet show right now with a little spice of Montgomery in there, and there's no one else on the team. So, is he going to put up as many points as Davante Adams? No. Is he going to come within 5 points? Probably. So,
I think that's possible. I think that's possible as well. I think we're going to have a pretty tight game, like tighter than what our projection currently states at the top. Because Robinson's been on a tear lately. The tight end position is where I think I can get a little bit of ground on you. I got Robert Tonyan going. He's had double digits the last 4 weeks. He's becoming one of the more consistent tight ends around the NFL. Rodgers likes getting him a touchdown. You have Jared Cook going at the tight end position for the Saints. He's had 2 double-digit points games in a row, but prior to that was at like 5 points. And I feel like Kansas City doesn't get quite enough credit defensively. They're a pretty good defense as well to go with that potent offense. I think I get the edge there. Marcus, what about you? You can be the tiebreaker. Not really a tiebreaker. I didn't ask Rich's opinion. You can give your opinion first.
What I'll say is Tonyan, he's always an option just because Rodgers is his QB. A lot of pressure is taken off of those receivers because Devontae is going to get doubled. But with Jared Cook, Kansas City has allowed 4 tight ends to get 100 yards since week 11. And with Taysom Hill as quarterback, Cook has scored in consecutive games. So I don't know. I think it might be pretty even. I don't know who's going to run away with it. But I'll say Tonyan. I'll give him a slight edge just because Rodgers is a better QB than Taysom Hill.
I mean,
Rich nodded yes. So
yeah, no, I mean, if Drew Brees comes back, like I said, it's going to make everyone on the team better. Including Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, everyone who we talked about before. I think the same goes for Jared Cook. Taysom Hill has found Jared Cook in the end zone multiple weeks, which is cool. But I would love to have Drew Brees in there instead. And like you said, in a game where it's going to be a high-scoring game, I'm trying to pick as many people from that game as possible. There's no way that this game isn't going to be super high-scoring. So if, let's say, 5 of those passes go to Jared Cook and one of them's a touchdown, I'm happy. But yeah, Tanyan, he's like we said last week, he's good for one long ball, and it's usually a touchdown. So you're probably going to get your points with him in 2 throws as opposed to me getting it in 5 or 6. And he actually has to get 5 or 6 targets for that to happen. So I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to go with Tanyan.
So that is a slight edge to me in the tight end position. Let's move to the flex, Rich, and let's talk about the Buffalo Bills against the Denver Broncos. I am sporting you said you have the young version of this man. I'll take the original, please. Stephon Diggs with the Buffalo Bills is a PPR machine. He had just one of the most incredible games I've ever seen out of a wide receiver on national television last week. Nearly 30 points. The week before, he had 19 points. He's been playing exceptionally since the bye week. It's a good matchup against the Denver Broncos. This is where Josh Allen likes to go where he's in trouble. And Diggs is able to score. You have Julio Jones going, one of the best wide receivers in football. It's just kind of, can he stay healthy? He missed practice today, Thursday. He missed last week's game. The week beforehand, he had 15 points, and then he missed the week before that. When he's healthy, though, he's an absolute beast. So matchup-wise, let's assume Julio can go. I think Diggs Julio is a little bit even, but what's your gut telling you on if he suits up on Sunday, Rich?
Even if he plays, I'm still 50-50 if he's going to start. I know that if I'm going to say this name a few weeks ago, people are going to be like, what are you talking about? They're not close. But T.Y. Hilton has been killing it the last couple of weeks. And, I'm looking at his stats. I'm looking at how he's playing with Rivers. And it's tempting to put him in no matter any way I can. If you look at the last 3 weeks, he had 18, 25, and then 25.6. I mean, he's getting nothing but touchdowns. Then Houston's going to get blown away. So you're either going to see Julio or you're going to see Hilton there. And there's going to be no in between. But I think Diggs is going to outscore both of them. So I'm going to go with you on this one. But it's going to be one of those 2 guys. So prepare to be not prepared.
I think you might be better off going with Hilton. He's been on a tear lately. Yeah. I think that game's going to be a blowout. I think that if I were you, I would make that sub now, honestly, especially with the injury concern. And Marcus seems to be nodding his head. So, do you think Hilton or Diggs, who gets the edge?
I'm gonna go Diggs. I think it'll be close though. Ty, like you said, has been on a tear. I mean, even over his career, he's been destroying the Texans. I looked up something. They said he played the Texans 17 times in his career. His total stats from those games, 98 catches, over 1,700 yards, and 11 touchdowns. He destroys the Texans. He goes off. So I would say I'll say pencil him in for another big game. But with the Bills, I mean, Josh Allen loves Stephon Diggs. So I think it'll be close, but I'll edge out Diggs over T.Y.
And game-wise, I think we're all in agreement. The Bills should beat the Denver Broncos, right?
Yeah.
That should be a beatdown. We've already discussed this game, Titans, Detroit, but I have the wide receiver Corey Davis in my second flex, who disappointed last week against Jacksonville with only 3.4 points, but the week before had 35 points, 10 and was in double digits every game before that. I think it was a disappointing game. Maybe he can't quite carry the rock as a number one receiver, but I think he has the opportunity to bounce back in a really nice matchup against Detroit. But you have a very rock solid wide receiver going in Deontay Johnson, who he has a bit of a dropsy problem, but he also is one of the favorites of Big Ben. So I actually am leaning towards giving you the edge. Deontay Johnson also coming off a bit of a rough week last week, but I think we'll bounce back as well. And I think we'll have a better game than my boy Corey Davis.
I mean, I'm going to give the edge to me on this one too, just for this one because of last week. I think last week was scary for both of these guys. I mean, Corey Davis underperformed, and yeah, my guy actually got benched, but he came back and he's pissed off. So I think he's going to be pissed going into this game, and I think he's going to put those extra good gloves on so they stick to the ball a little more, so he doesn't get benched again. But both these games are going to be blowouts, so I don't really know how long our guys are going to be in there. They might run the ball for the majority of this game. So I'm going to give the edge to my guy, but it's going to be probably within 5 points, like every other one of the matchups we have.
And Marcus, what do you think? And then I have a follow-up question for you.
I'll give the edge to Deontay. Sometimes it's hard to trust the tight ends receivers just because Henry is so good. The offense kind of runs through him. So the receivers don't really get the ball as much as they would, let's say, Big Ben slinging the ball against Cincinnati. So I'll give the slight edge to Rich's guy, Deontay.
Well, so we all give the edge to Deontay, but I got a fella on my bench who I think could have a good game, and that's Robbie Anderson. And Rich, I'm not going to ask you what I should do here because I think that's a little unfair, but I did give you some good advice that I say I think you should start T.Y. Hilton over Julio. So if you would like to return the favor, you may. But Marcus, do you feel Robbie Anderson is a better start for Corey Davis because the Panthers are going to have to be slinging this football to stay competitive against Green Bay?
See, I think I would probably keep in Corey Davis just because, like I said earlier, with Henry, he's going to get the ball, but if he's dominating, that opens up play action passes for Corey Davis. And I think Tannehill can have a decent game. These 20 points in the last 4 games each. He's not, slouching or nothing like that. And the Lions, I mean, they allow a lot of points per game to a quarterback, so I would keep Corey Davis in.
Rich, any comments?
I would do it too. I think Corey Davis is going to outscore Robbie Anderson. But, I mean, if it's me, I think you should put in Will Fuller because I think he's going to have a good game.
Oh, shush you. If Will Fuller didn't get suspended, maybe. I'm glad, those, points didn't get, retroactively pulled or something, though. Like, the game before he got suspended. Because, yeah. Yeah, of course, after he scores 35 points, he gets suspended for performance-enhancing drugs. So,
That's why he scored 35 points.
Yeah, exactly. But, all right, very good. I am going to agree with you guys. I think Corey Davis is probably the better play here. We got the kickers. We got the battle of the kickers, Rich. I picked up Mason Crosby because I used to start Brandon McManus, and he had a terrible game last week. So I feel burnt. And I think Mason Crosby might get 7 extra points this week. Yeah. So, I'll take 7 points. You're rocking Stefan Gostkowski. I'm not great at saying his name. He's got a weird streakiness. Sometimes he misses a lot. Sometimes he scores a ton of points. Not the most consistent kicker in the world, Stefan Gostkowski. But I think that's pretty much a wash. I think they're going to have about the same game.
Is there any more Jewish-sounding kicker than that, though?
No.
Stefan Gostkowski. But no, I mean, I guess...
No, yeah, he's definitely one of my people, for sure. But or at least, related to one.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that he's good for, I'm going to say 2 field goals and an extra point. So, I mean, I'm going to shoot for 7, too. There's not really any, make-or-break kickers this week that are available. So, I'm gonna go with the one that might score. Just because it's going to be a blowout. That's why I picked it. I think it's going to be a blowout. So they're going to run the ball and then be like, I don't want to be mean. And then they're going to kick a field goal. So,
and now let's move on to the defenses. And a theme in this show very early on was defenses wins fantasy football championships. And not for nothing, I credit this team for a big reason why I won in the fashion I did last week. And I think this will be my X factor again this week. I have the Los Angeles Rams defense facing off against the New York Jets. And I just think they're going to abuse Sam Darnold or Joe Flacco or Marcus Taylor or whoever is going to be starting at quarterback for the Jets. And I think they're going to have over 20 fantasy points, just legitimately. I know the Jets offense didn't – let me put it this way. They didn't have like a crazy amount of fantasy points, the Seattle Seahawks defense last week against the Jets, but that defense is pretty bad, and they held the Jets to 3 points. I think a pretty good defense is going to score on the Jets via pick sixes or fumbles, and there's going to be a lot of sacks. You have a pretty decent defense in the 49ers. They're just facing a better team in Dallas, I think. And the Niners defense is pretty beat up. The Dallas is better than the Jets. That's a fact.
No.
It's a fact. No, it's not debatable. It's a fact. A little bit.
I don't know. They're pretty bad. I think Dallas. I mean, the Jets are bad. Dallas is bad.
Yeah.
But I know the 49ers are good for like 3 sacks, and we'll pick off Andy Dalton one time. It's going to be a close battle between those two teams. So, I know. Obviously the Rams are going to win by 30, but that's going to be all offensive. Probably Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and Cam Akers. Defense is going to be tired because they're going to be on the field all game. You'll only win that matchup by 12.
Marcus, do you think this is as big of an X factor as I do in the battle of defenses?
Yes. Yeah, I think, and I think San Fran can actually. I think San Fran can actually put up some points. Now that I think about it, I think Zeke is hurt, and I think 49ers they're going to rough up Dalton, but I do think the Rams they definitely put up more points.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's not like San Francisco's defense is incapable of scoring points. In fact, against the Rams, they had 19 of them. It's just the last couple of weeks they haven't. 3 against Buffalo, 8 against Washington. I would say Washington is a fairly similarly skilled team to Dallas. And I think that's about what you can expect. So that is our matchup. As you can see, most of these were pretty close. According to our projection, Rich, I'm projected to win by 20 points. I don't know if it'll actually be that distant. I think this will probably end up being a 5 to 10 point game. And I'm knocking on wood, hoping that I get to advance.
Yeah, you won.
I'm gonna make you say it on the air. And
Marcus betrayed me in Dynasty.
What I did?
I don't know. His internet got all screwy. Marcus, do you think I'll win too?
Yeah, I think it'll be close, but I think the defense is what's going to push you over the top.
That's kind of where I'm at. Is there anything left about the NFL this week that you guys wanted to address before we sign off?
No. Jets lose, please.
Trevor Lawrence allegedly is interested in going and helping rebuild the New York Jets, so I busted out my brand new New York Jets hat in celebration of this great interview, and we're very much looking forward to the savior Trevor hopefully being drafted by the New York Jets. Knock on wood.
What if he's a bust?
Whatever. At least we tried.
We had nothing but bust. I'll take one that looks like a stallion.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold was also supposed to do this a couple years ago. And, whatever. If he's a bust, we'll just do it again in 3 years. It's fine.
Now, Darnold's going to go to a new team, and he's going to show you what he can do. Maybe.
Probably not, but maybe. So, guys, this has been a real fun show. We're very much enjoying the fantasy football playoffs. If you have any questions, our Twitter addresses are here on the screen at Seagorps94, at Coda522, at EMTaylor29, or, of course, at Daily2Dynasty. Go ahead and remember to interact, ask your questions. We'll help you get your lineup set in time for Saturday football. Don't forget, there's Saturday football this week, Sunday football, Monday football, all the football. It's great. It's going to be a real fun weekend. For Rich and Marcus, this has been Daily to Dynasty, and as we are in forever search of our ending catchphrase, allegedly, that'll do her.